All right, people, welcome back to a live edition of The Slice here on this Friday morning, my time, very early Friday, North American time, possibly nighttime. Kind of a weird time to be going live, but we're going to do it because we got lots to break down, lots to cover. We're going to cover the Toronto draw, the WTA, which has been busted wide open with Iga Swiatek going out, and we're going to look at the ATP draw as well. We're going to take a look at who's the favorite to win. I think it might be Nick Kyrgios, spoiler alert, but we're going to take a look at all four of the matchups on both sides, look at their head-to-heads, look at the odds of them winning, get down deep and dirty into it, you know what I'm saying? So if you guys are joining me live, I will do some Q&A at the end on kind of what I think of what's happened so far in these tournaments. One of the big stories of the week so far is the only Canadian left in the Canadian Open here on either the men's or the women's. It's Felix Auger-Aliassime, and I'm actually calling him now the mayor of Montreal. For obvious reasons, Felix has Montreal in the palm of his hand, and he is absolutely doing the most he can to just try and straight up win this tournament. Let's just be honest. He wants to win this tournament, doing it in front of his home crowd. For Canada, it would be insane. And then he might, I might even start calling him the King of Canada. You never know. But there's been lots of action this week, and thanks for joining us live. If you are, I know it's a weird time of the night, and like I said, we'll get to some questions later on about what I think is going on, but thanks for being here. And the slice during the US Open Series is presented by PointsBet Canada. You already know it. So if you're in Ontario and you want to get in on the action in tennis, join PointsBet. They have lots of amazing in-game odds and betting options, and we're going to look at some of them in this preview. So let's start with the WTA in Toronto. And if you wondered how it was pronounced, that's how it's pronounced. Toronto, not Toronto. I don't know. We're Canadians. And, me living in Europe now and actually not being around Canadians at all, I'm actually noticing the Canadian accents of the broadcasters or other media members, or our own Brendan McCarthy, who was on the ground in Toronto at the beginning of the week. Very Canadian accent. Love it. So, yeah, let's look at the draw here. For the WTA, this is the draw. This is what we got. As you can see, Iga Swiatek lost last night to Bella Hadid Maya. 3 sets, tight match. I actually didn't get to watch any of it because I was watching the Felix Auger-Aliassime match. But that's a big upset, obviously. And I think, it's fair to say now that the Iga show is not over. Obviously, the Iga show is not over. She's still the number 1 player in the world, but she's definitely not casting the fear into opponents or the dominance that she probably was before Wimbledon. I think that's clear, and she seems more beatable now, and that's evidenced by the fact that she's lost a couple times in the last few weeks. And this went to Bella Hadid Maya. If you remember, she was on an absolute tear in the grass season before Wimbledon. Hadid Maya was. So she's a big, strong player, and a powerhouse like Swiatek, you have to be able to hit through her if you want a chance to beat her, I think. And Hadid Maya was able to do that, and so that's a big win for her in her career. The Brazilian, that's big. That's big time, isn't it? So she'll be playing Belinda Bencic. She took out Muguruza. Belinda Bencic is on a bit of a roll here in Toronto. Hasn't lost a set. Played, spoiler alert, took out Serena Williams, ended her career in Toronto, and took out Muguruza. So we got Hadid Maya versus Bencic, and then we got Karolina Pliskova, who took out Sakkari, versus Qinwen Zheng, who also played, spoiler alert, and took out Bianca Andreescu last night, which was in the middle of the night for me, so I was not able to stay up and watch that either. But it was a 3-set match, and the young Chinese teenager she already took out, Ons Jabeur technically retired, so she took out already Rebecca Marino in the first round. Now she's taking out Bianca Andreescu. So she's like the most wanted person in Canada right now. So that's funny. But Zhang's playing Pliskova. And we got Pegula taking out Georgie, the defending champion, yesterday as well. And she'll be playing Putintseva. And then we got probably the best matchup on the women's side, Coco Gauff versus Simona Halep, 2 stars. Coco Gauff has taken out Rybakina, the defending Wimbledon champion, and Sabalenka, both from Eastern Europe, and that's irrelevant, but just both big hitters. And Coco Gauff's, the athlete that she is, able to defend and just battle through both these tough matches. So that's big for her, and she'll be playing Simona Halep now. So if we look at the head-to-heads in all these matchups, Simona Halep versus Coco Gauff, Simona Halep has a 3.0 head-to-head. Simona's looked really good. She hasn't dropped a set all tournament. I know our girl on the ground in Toronto right now, why am I forgetting her name somehow? Karina Mustafa, huge Simona Halep fan, and she'll be rooting for her, I'm sure, as she's still there in the booth. 3.0 hasn't lost a set all tournament. So I think if we're going to do some predictions of these matches, I'm going to take Halep over Gauff, as I think just Halep is playing super clean tennis right now. If we're going to pull up the odds here, why don't we pull up the odds quickly to show you who the favorites are, because that'll help us kind of picture what's going on and picture these matchups. As I pull this up, we got the odds here. You can see Coco Gauff is the underdog versus Simona Halep, who's the favorite at 1.59 times your money. So it's fairly close, which I think is fair. Coco Gauff versus Halep. It's going to be a great battle, and it could go either way. That's for sure. So there's definitely value in that one for either woman, I'd say. Pegula is the favorite against Putintseva fairly strongly, and I think that's accurate. Bella Hadid is the underdog versus Belinda Bencic, which I think makes sense as well. Bencic is playing very well, hits very nicely on these courts, good on hard courts. And then probably the closest match, maybe even closer than the Coco Gauff Halep match, is Zheng versus Pliskova. So you can see there the odds just over 2-1 for Zheng. And I honestly like Zheng. If she's taking out the likes of Andreescu, that means she could take out Pliskova. And on these hard courts, the athlete that she is, she can run down the shots, the big power from Pliskova, I think, and do some damage. So I'd look for that one as maybe an underdog value there. What do you guys think? So yeah, to me, that's pretty much an interesting, in both the ATP and the WTA, the draws have been so wide open. Like I said, busted wide open with the top seeds going out. There's no real matchups where we've had like a long kind of history between them in these quarterfinal matchups. A lot of them haven't, 4 out of the 8 matchups on the men's and women's haven't ever played each other before. So it's pretty kind of wide open, and just that's all I can say. It's wide open. So if we're going to look at the men's now, why don't we do that? Pull up the men's draw here. And as you can see, we got Nick Kyrgios versus Hurkacz, Ruud versus Felix Auger-Aliassime, Carreño Busta versus Draper, Dan Evans versus Tommy Paul. So just tons of talent in here. And the big story, which I made a video about yesterday, is the top 3 seeds being out. Medvedev losing to Kyrgios, who then Kyrgios went on and destroyed friend Alex de Minaur. That was a really good performance by Kyrgios. Wasn't able to watch that live. And then Hurkacz struggled and just got through Ramos Vinolas, who Ramos Vinolas took out Schwartzman and Goffin. So he's been playing well, obviously. But I would feel like a guy like Hurkacz would probably get through Ramos Vinolas easier than he did. But I don't know. So Hurkacz, just looking at this matchup, Nick Kyrgios, Hurkacz is one of the few guys who has a head-to-head positive against Kyrgios. It's only 1-0. They played in Halle, where Hurkacz beat Kyrgios. So that'll be fresh in his memory, and Kyrgios will be motivated to right that ship, as he would think of it. So I just don't know how to call this one, because Hurkacz can play amazingly well. He can be super aggressive, come forward, and play a Kyrgios-esque type of game with a big serve. But if he sits back and his forehand gets loose and he starts missing a lot, that can play right into Kyrgios's wheelhouse, where Kyrgios will just hone in on that, use his variety, use his tennis IQ, take pace away from balls. But it'll be interesting because both these guys can come forward, and I'm thinking Hurkacz will want to do that a lot. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. That's going to be a tight match, I think, in my opinion. And then we got Casper Ruud, the friendly ghost, versus the mayor of Montreal, Felix Auger-Aliassime. I'm going to be doing a live watch along for this one tonight because it works for my time zone. And that's going to be an interesting one. I think Felix, they're 1-1 in their head-to-heads, and I think Felix is the big favorite in this match based on the way he played against Cam Norrie, where he absolutely destroyed him. That was one of the best serving performances and just general performances I've seen from Felix in quite a while, maybe since the French Open. So Felix is feeling very confident. He's got the entire crowd behind him. Rude, friend of the show, nice guy. I like him, but I just don't see him handling the power that Felix is going to bring well on these hard courts. If Felix doesn't serve well, then it could get tricky for sure. But Casper Ruud almost lost to Bautista Agut. That was a tight match, and he just wasn't playing. It was a good win for him, obviously, but he didn't play that clean, and it was a bit of a grindy battle there in that one. So I'm taking Felix for sure in that match. That's going to be interesting. Now we get to the land of the unseeded players, the bottom half here in this draw. We got Carreño Busta, who's just been absolutely chopping players. He beat Berrettini 6-3, 6-2, and then he beat Holger Rune, friend of the show, 6-0, 6-3, and then he beat Jannik Sinner, who I thought had a really good chance to do damage here. The number 7 seed, he beat him 6-2, 6-4. So Carreño Busta is on a tear, and Jack Draper beat Tsitsipas, which is a nice win. But then he was down in the second set when Gael Monfils retired, actually. So I think Carreño Busta's got the big advantage here. So I would pick Carreño Busta, and then we got Dan Evans versus Tommy Paul. Tommy Paul took out Carlitos Alcaraz. Played very well, moved super well. So Dan Evans versus Tommy Paul is battle of the super movers. They both move really well, and they both hit clean balls. Tommy, from what I've seen, has been hitting even bigger than Dan would be. And I can see if Tommy plays a really mature match here, he might feel a little bit more pressure because this is a match I know he'll come into feeling like he can win. He talked about with Alcaraz that going into that match when you're playing a high-seeded player, like Alcaraz was the number 2 seed in the tournament, you get that amped up feeling, you get excited for the match, you get excited for the challenge, and you tend to raise your level when you're playing a guy who's ranked higher than you. So that's not the case with Dan Evans. I think they're ranked pretty similarly. So it'll be interesting to see who's able to elevate their game the most there. I would maybe slightly lean Tommy Paul. But why don't we look at the odds here, as that'll be interesting to me to see who they're leaning on more on the old PointsBet Canada. So as you can see here, Kyrgios versus Hurkacz. They've actually got a lot of value on Hurkacz. 3.3 times your money to win versus Nick. So they're not giving him much chance, but I would give him a lot more chance than that, to be fair. So that's an interesting one to look at. Then we got Felix versus Ruud, and they're keeping it pretty tight, but there's actually some value in there for Felix, and I would say he's a pretty big favorite. So that's also interesting. Evans versus Tommy Paul, pretty close as to be expected. And they got Carreño Busta at 1.43 as the big favorite, kind of big favorite over Jack Draper. So that's interesting. Those are going to be good matches. I'm excited for those, all the ATP matches. The women's is a little bit more kind of like mysterious on what we should be looking for. It's not, there's no big storylines in a lot of those matchups except for the Coco Gauff, Simona Halep match, which I'm looking very forward to. But yeah, what do you guys see? I see a few comments in the section here. Eduardo Grania says Coco versus Halep, great match. I know, isn't it a great match? Yeah, kind of similar styles. Like both of them kind of like to grind from the baseline still. Kind of neither of them have like huge serves. And yeah, so it's going to be a lot of rallies. I think a lot of pushing each other around the court. And just both great athletes. But Coco with the bigger range, with the bigger reach, longer, taller, will that help her? That's to be decided. So we will see about that. Thanks for the question, Eduardo. Subradeep. Hope I got that right. Do you think Nadal can surpass Daniil for number 1 ranking? I think is what you mean. I do think that for sure. He didn't play. Let's remember, Nadal did not play Cincinnati last year. He's playing Cincinnati this year. So he can actually pass him there. If Daniil loses like really early in Cincinnati and Nadal makes it deep, I think he can pass him in Cincinnati. But then Daniil also won the U.S. Open last year, so he's defending 2,000 points from that, and Nadal didn't play the U.S. Open. So I think it's fairly clear that after the U.S. Open, Nadal will be the number 1, overtaking Daniil Medvedev, unless Zverev comes out and somehow wins the U.S. Open, and Nadal doesn't make it that deep. We'll see, but that would be kind of shocking because I don't even think Zverev's going to play it all before the U.S. Open. So we will see. But yeah, I think that's kind of all I got. A lot of everyone here is still sleeping, so I might leave it at that. Maybe last question here with KW. Has Kyrgios peaked too early for the US Open? Will he be too tired come New York? Good question. I don't know. I don't think so. It depends. If he ends up like winning Toronto, he said he's not playing the week before the US Open. So he's not playing Winston-Salem. So he's going to go play Cincinnati. I don't see him pulling out of that, but if there's any type of like nagging injury potentially, but I see him playing here and playing well in Cincinnati and Toronto. And then recouping, he seems like he's doing all the right things off the court. He seems like he's got his full-time physio there. He's talked about how he's doing 2 to 3 hours of work per day to get his body right, something that we haven't really seen from him before. So he should, in theory, be able to do it. Like he's not, in a lot of these matches, like he's not expending like an insane amount of energy. Like against the Demon Hour, cooked them pretty quickly. So I don't think that he will have to get running at a gas, but the big issue is that it is 3 to 5 sets. So it is, but he just made the Wimbledon final again, was able to serve through every match there like so easily. But if he gets pulled into 5-set matches 1 or 2 times on the hard courts there, I think that'll really stress his body. So we'll see how it holds up. It's a good question. Leon says, do you think Nole will play US Open? I don't know. I do not think so. That's my first inkling is, I unfortunately don't think he'll be let in the country, and that's lame to me. I think, he poses no risk to anyone, but that's just the rules of the U.S. I don't have any say over that. But I don't think he'll be allowed in the country to play. But I did hear like an inkling that some rules may be changing around travel. Could be getting more strict. You never know. So I'm not sure if unvaccinated foreigners will be allowed in the country, which sucks because, like I said with Wimbledon, like I said with the Australian Open, you want all of the best players to be at the majors contending for the title. That did not happen at the Australian Open. Definitely did not happen at Wimbledon. And it looks like it's not going to happen here again at the US Open, which, just sucks for the fans, takes away the validity of the tournament, and, doesn't help anyone as far as tennis goes. But obviously there's bigger issues in the world than tennis. And I guess that's what we just have to live with right now as tennis fans and historians, which sucks because you feel like the rankings and history is being altered in a way by this, or affected by this at least a little bit. So anyway, it's going to leave it there with the questions. I will happy to chat down in the comment section below. Leave your thoughts on the matchups. It's going to be super interesting. Like I said, if you didn't mention, my predictions right now are I'm taking Bencic over Hadid Mia. I'm taking Zheng over Pliskova. I'm taking Pegula over Putintseva. I'm taking Halep over Goff. Those are my predictions. And then I'm taking, Kyrgios Hurkacz. I'm taking Kyrgios, Felix over Rude, Pablo Carreño Busta over Draper. And I'm going to go with Tommy Paul over Dan Evans. I think Tommy Paul's on a bit of a heater this week. I think he might do something special. So we'll see if these predictions come true. Let me know your predictions down below, and I will send you off with a little salute to the mayor of Montreal, who I'm hoping very biasly, super biasly, that he comes through and just wins this tournament. We'll see you guys next time here on the Slice. Stay tuned for the watch along with Felix tonight as the mayor gets down to work.